What's up, Goth Gamer Nation? But seriously, I'd like to open by thanking all of you for subscribing to this channel, for all your comments, your bells, your like buttons that I sure hope you have long since smashed already. Thank you for helping me reach 10,000 subscribers. We've already far exceeded what I assumed I would accomplish here, so I'm ecstatic. It's very surreal. It's honestly terrifying, but I'm not going to dwell on the visual of 10,000 people scrutinizing something I made. So I created a little poll over on Discord for video ideas, and my Ask Me Anything idea won. And I collected not only the best questions, but all the questions, and I'm going to address all 60 or so, and as honestly as I can. So, since I imagine this might take a while, let's get right into it. But thank you for submitting questions at all. Honestly, there was a moment where I was like, fuck, what if nobody asks anything? What if nobody cared? What if nobody will validate my existence? What if I just stop breathing? Would you care? So yeah, question number 1. Also, I have a new mic now, so it sounds really good. I didn't have anything to add with that. It's just I'm coming up in the world. Question 1. Barry asks, if you were a rich man with $1 million or $2 million, would you live in a penthouse with a room and a view? I mean, if it was you and me together, because that's how it always should be. Like one without the other, it don't mean nothing to me. Two Lanes asks, but who was phone? You know, I called my service provider a while ago, and there was some real confusing back and forth because apparently I hadn't been paying for a landline for well over a decade now, so my guess is it was probably some kids mucking about or something. Tiduidi asks, if two guys were on the moon and one killed the other with a rock, would you make a video on it? And I'm glad we're getting the meme questions out of the way first. Honestly, it's a deep cut, and I respect that. Hyperspace Jelly asks, what's your favorite graphic adventure game? The first real question, and you've stopped me dead in my tracks, dude. I'm not good at favorites, so I'll just name a handful that immediately came to mind and are important to me. I mean, I'm assuming you mean like 90s to early 2000s sort of point-and-click affairs, so I'm gonna go with Harvester, The Beast Within, Puzzle of Flesh, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, Sanitarium, and clearly I have a bias for games with tons of FMV though, so there are a bunch of those that I love, even though they kind of live in that campy interactive movie space. You got Ripper, Black Dahlia, the X-Files game, Morpheus, and whatnot. I'm sure I'm missing a ton, but you get the idea. Alexander452 asks, 2 questions. Have you ever considered reviewing something you wouldn't usually play? And the other question, Epic Dab for 10k. I mean, I have a type I go for, an aesthetic I cling to, but I trust in a lot of the suggestions sent to me, so if I saw support for a game that I wouldn't otherwise be interested in, doing a video for the Silver Case and the original Pathologic even originated entirely out of, just getting tons of recommendations, and I enjoyed sort of creeping out of my comfort zone for those experiences. As for your second question, it just happened. You missed it. You'll never see it, but it happened. I hope that satisfies you. Game Master asks a couple of questions. 1, you said that the review you wanted to do the most was Morrowind one time. Any chance that can be a future subscriber milestone? 2, if you were to create a horror game of your own design, or even a game, whether a sequel to an existing property, or your own, or whatever, what would it be? 3, do you have any plans for a future alternate reality game using your cutaways? I think I said something to the effect of it being a white whale review of sorts, like something I'd never have the time to properly do, but would love to, and that is still true. I'd have to become much more. I'd have to become much better at managing my time, and just like not have another job to worry about in order to pull that off. In general, I'd love doing videos for all the Elder Scrolls games, even peripheral ones like Redguard, but I wouldn't know quite how to tackle something of that scale just yet. I feel like I would go dark for like a month or so, and I can't have that. If this was all I did to survive in the world, then fuck yeah, I'd be working on that right now. As for my own horror game, or sequel to one, I'm gonna give an answer purely swayed by the fact that I'm currently playing Condemned, and say that I'd really love to see a grounded, gritty, visceral, horror-tinged crime drama of sorts, like the feeling Condemned evokes in the first 30 minutes, but extended for a whole game, where you need to use tools to investigate crime scenes, conserve ammo, use found objects as weapons, and you're not bombarded by waves of enemies. It's like 1 or 2 per area, but the fights would be tense and brutal, and the protagonist would be affected by his experiences, by the deaths of his enemies. It would be a difficult thing to deal with. When I was a kid, I had this dream game that I would think about and write notes for and plan out. And the basic premise of it was a series of scenarios in different locations, like a house or a shopping mall with no power, where you have numerous means to defend yourself. Like just about anything could be twisted to become a weapon. And so there's just about any way you could defend yourself, and measures you could take to like set up almost traps or ways to like corral them into cornering them and stuff. But ostensibly every area would have only one, maybe two enemies, and it would just be a man, like just another guy with his own agenda. And you'd have these chaotic, panic-inducing skirmishes, and one would limp off bleeding, and you'd have to track him down, and it would just take forever and be sort of exhausting. Or if it was you that was injured, you'd have to like cover your tracks and try to gain another advantage. As I'm saying this out loud, I'm realizing how odd it is that a child dreamed of this, but there you are. An ARG sounds like a lot of fun. As a longtime fan of Lost, I appreciate a good ARG. But that's something I'd have to plot out extensively, and I don't currently have time for that. But one day, that'd be pretty fucking cool. I'd love that idea. Oh, fuck yeah, dude. My Mountain Dew Kickstart's 9 stops away. Hyperspace Jelly asks, top 3 best horror movies. Contrary to what I feel many probably assume, I'm not like a horror movie expert guy. Like, I like movies that can frighten me, but it's an elusive emotion to pull out of me in a traditional horror movie. Like, I'll get glimpses of it. I can find a scene or an idea in a movie horrific, but it's very rare that it happens in a movie that would be in the genre of horror. But without thinking too hard, I'm gonna say top 3 best, like The Shining, Silence of the Lambs, and Jacob's Ladder. I mean, just as stories and examples of the craft of filmmaking, probably the best. But answering things like that with sort of predictable answers is kind of unsatisfying. So I'll say ones I liked in the past decade or so, they'd be all kind of all over the map. I know my Mountain Dew Kickstart's on its way. You just gotta tell me once. I'll leave the map open. So I'm gonna say Let the Right One In, Funny Games, Session 9, and Suicide Club. Those are at least ones that stuck with me for a while, and I think that's what I appreciate more than being scared, is just that, it stays in my head and I can't forget it. Scum with Boundaries asks, does chewing fingernails count as auto-cannibalism? No, but if you're consuming them, it does suggest some compulsive behavior that might be troublesome in the long run, so I hope you're well. Nomad asks, would you rather have hair for teeth or teeth for hair? And, well, either way, either result would end in my prompt suicide. So, it's not really a question I have to ponder too hard for too long. Mega Apple asks, how is she doing? And what's your music making process? Well, from what I can tell from grainy nanny cam footage, she's getting on just fine without me. As for music, I don't know if I have much of a process to describe, because I don't know anything really about music theory. I just like playing with synths and getting them to make, a specific sound that I hear in my head first and then I want replicated. And then, like, in a purely stream of consciousness way, think what they should be doing. And then I add drums, which are often just me replicating beats that are stuck in my head from years of listening to early industrial. Then I set up all the song assets, not specifically laid out like a song, but as a loop. And I let that loop, like, forever, and think of how I want the lyrics to be sort of metered out. And then I just listen to that loop and, pick up floating words in my head that I want to try to force myself into a headspace where they begin to make sense, Like, it's usually one of two things, really. A personality that is not my own, that I find particularly unpleasant, complicated, or monstrous, or it's dwelling on something I've experienced, which I've begun to do less and less because it's not healthy. Like, I remember I made a song called Everything After That Is Just Progress, which I was very pleased to have such a comically long title, but I really started to think about why I wrote that, what event in my life brought that up, and I realized maybe I don't need things like that in my head anymore. Like, it wasn't so much getting it out made it better, because in order to go there, I needed to dwell on it. So, lately I've just been having fun taking the form of others with the gross lyrics. Kiwi asks, if a genie appeared and offered to grant you one wish On the condition that he was permitted to magically snap a single bone in your body, which bone would you pick? I mean, provided it will heal normally, something like a toe or like my right pinky, right? Though I'd probably not be able to afford medical attention for it, so that might end up being my wish, making the whole scenario somewhat fruitless. Pagan Butler asks, what small YouTube channels do you like, and what is your editing process? I feel like that's the second question I've been asked. That's here's an easy to answer one, and also describe everything you do. I'm still very small, still a small man, but if I looked at ones I'm sub to that are at least a similar sub count, I enjoy Marshall Dyer, a Let's Player of sorts with a really charming voice and like relaxed commentary style. She was a big help when I was originally doing my pathologic video because there were so many moments where I just needed to confirm that the game was like as baffling to others as it was for me, and that provided a lot of validation. But really enjoyable and thoughtful playthroughs of like horror and adventure games. A lot of games I've talked about here. I'm also sub to Mako Buns, who someone recently posted in Discord and I was immediately amused by. But she does a sort of, I don't know how you describe it, a cynical and satirical exploration of, kind of cosplay model influencer Lolita personalities. And it's so convincing. It's like I grimace throughout everything. Like I'm just getting pummeled by it. It's a visceral cringe like no other. But then something will sort of break in her character, and I can see how much even she was amused by it, and it makes it really endearing. Other than that, there are a lot of bands and record labels that I in no way deserve to have more subs than. Like, several of my favorite bands are a part of a record label called The Flenser, and right now they only have about 5,000 subs, which is ridiculous to me, because they're consistently putting out great music, like Street Sex, Wreck and Reference, Planning for Burial, Have a Nice Life, Drowse, Boston Age, All Your Sisters, Elizabeth Color Wheel, King Woman, Mamalik, Ailes. The list goes on, and I'm not doing anything nearly as worthy of being subscribed to as them. My editing process is pretty simple. Basically, I start by editing my voiceover, cutting out any pauses or goofs, and once that's laid out, like I already wrote it adhering to a template, so that's the format already. It's just a matter of putting together the puzzle. I have a template I put together beforehand with like my title cards and my end slate, so I just space those out and plug them in, and after that it's just scrubbing through gameplay footage to match up what I'm talking about to the right clip. I use Sony Vegas to edit, probably a very out-of-date version that I should update. But that's it, really. I have compiled some effects and B-roll stuff that I use for live-action bits, just because I feel like it feels more organic when some kind of glitch or something throws them into the video. And those up until a year ago were recorded on my phone, but I use a GoPro nowadays, but sometimes I think the phone looks better.
Anarka
asks, do you have any games you look forward to in 2019 to 2020? Yes! I can have optimism about games. I'm capable of that. Very excited for Asylum, the new game from the creator of Scratches. Very excited for the next Darkfall game. Shadow over Isolation, which touts itself as a cross between Lovecraft and Stanley Kubrick. Under a Porcelain Sun, which looks like a surreal Indian story. The Outer Worlds, because obviously. Cyberpunk 2077, because Keanu Reeves. Crimson Hills, if that ever comes out. Atomic Heart looks fucking insane. I barely know what it's about, but I just know it's everything I want. There is a psychological thriller called Those Who Remain being worked on, a point-and-click adventure called Saint Kotar. There's a first-person UFO thriller called The Peterson Case that looks really promising. Lust from Beyond is a game whose Kickstarter I contributed to. It's meant to be like a mashup of Lovecraft and Giger and creepy Eyes Wide Shut orgies. All my favorite things. Luna Dankovsky asks, what's your favorite book, movie, and podcast? Asking the cruelest questions out here, Luna. I'm really bad with favorites, so I assure you if you ask me this later down the line, the answers will change. But movie, I'm going to say Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I'm not going to elaborate on why. Favorite book would probably be Communion by Whitley Strieber. It was one of the first books to just do wacky things to my head. Like, few things have stayed with me as much as just reading that on a whim and realizing I had a whole slew of odd, irrational concerns about the paranormal that did not line up with what I had assumed was a deeply nihilistic outlook on life. My favorite podcast is probably still Comedy Bang Bang. I've listened to it the longest. It's been around for like 10 years and it's still really good. To celebrate that milestone, they did a 10-hour episode that was somehow consistently a complete delight from start to finish, especially if you're familiar with returning characters and guests. If you are unfamiliar with it, it's like an improv comedy interview show that is heavy on very dry anti-humor, so prepare for that, I suppose. There was a live-action show that you can probably still see on Netflix that they did for a couple seasons. That was like sort of watered down versions of improv things that happened on the show that they like recreate as an actual live action talk show. But I mean, it was really good. It had its moments for sure. It was fun seeing all that recreated, but I still prefer the podcast overall. Uncle Joe with a capital O asks, opinion on the noblest game genre, real-time strategy. You know, I'm not sure why, but I never kept up with I never kept up with RTSs. I loved Warcraft 1, 2, and 3. I loved StarCraft, the first few Command and Conquers, Empire Earth, Civilization, but I don't know, they don't really hold my attention anymore, and I couldn't really tell you why, other than I guess my taste changed over time. I still respect them a great deal, and agree that noble is the right word to describe them. There's something stalwart, enduring about them. I don't know. Jake Jong asks, do you have any advice for creating music / the recording process? I don't have good advice because I'm not like a music snob. I don't know enough of it to be able to pick apart bad production. I know there are consistent problems with my own stuff, but it's it's just something that's got to get ironed out with repetition. You just got to keep doing it. I have a real relaxed approach to the recording process. I basically scream into a microphone, and if there are any glaring issues that aren't just me being shitty, I can probably tweak something in post to make it less of an issue. The tools available are a lot of help, so really just familiarize yourself with your interface of choice. I think half the time my songs end up sounding like songs just because I spent years just dicking around with FL Studio since it was called Fruity Loops, so I'm pretty familiar with it and comfortable with it. Pagan Butler asks, advice on getting into making gaming reviews. Well, I don't know how qualified I am to advise on that matter, but I've found that more often than not, people don't entirely care about the game as much as they care about how they feel about you. You know, how is your personality unique or relatable or entertaining? If they like you, they will listen to you talk about shit that they otherwise wouldn't have cared about. So I guess I'd say lean into your voice and your opinion and be expressive about it, like care about things. Because there are outlets for people who just want to know if a game is good based on some vague scoring system or aggregation, but people will listen to you more if you have a personality and a voice with its own quirks and preferences. So even if they disagree with you, they'll enjoy listening to you. Octo asks, would you rather come or f***? First of all, thank you. I appreciate you a great deal. I'm a fan of you as a human being, and I'm glad you took the opportunity to test my will and my wits here. So from what I can gather from your little mind puzzle here, is that no matter how I try to frame the narrative or context, I'm not entirely benefiting from the situation either way. I could say the latter, assuming it would come with pleasure, but I don't feel like you're suggesting that entirely. I think you just mean a strictly sensationless biological response that is more inconvenient than anything else. So, after giving this a lot of thought, I'm going to say the first option on the basis that the act will, aside from its byproduct, function the same. And just hope a future partner is understanding of my affliction, we discuss it beforehand, and if they're going into it knowing what will result, then I can only imagine that would be a deeply meaningful and long-lasting relationship. Thank you again for your question. Game Master asks, one last question. How is your PC situation? Do you need to upgrade yours for games like Cyberpunk in the future, or will your PC last for a while? It's been maybe 4 years since I upgraded my PC, and I'm guessing I will need to make some adjustments for games like Cyberpunk. From the start, it's never been amazing or anything. It was severely on a budget and made from cannibalized bits of other PCs. It ain't a pretty rig. I'm not gonna put it on Reddit anytime soon. But it's handled itself well for a long time. Pathologic 2 had some moments of real lag, and that's the first time a game has ever brought things to a halt. Though I'm hoping it was just some poor optimization on their part, because it was an alpha, because it was early access, and it wasn't just this old girl getting old. Harley asks, if Bloodrain and a duo team of Jeanette and Therese from Vampire the Masquerade were to fight, who would have the most rocking tits? I don't know why it's relevant that they be fighting. That doesn't seem to be part of the question. Is it just the idea of them in motion? I mean, Jeanette seems to have the least support, so maybe that would provide a nice distraction that could grant her some kind of tactical advantage in a fight. I'm not sure, though. Seems like Rain is more prepared for the fight. Also, she just has a better outfit in general. That's gonna, accentuate and... I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. It's Rain. Of course it's Rain. Astro Shepherd asks, what's your creative moonshot? For AVGN, it was to make a movie, which he ended up doing. If you could accomplish anything creatively, time, money, talent, what would it be? I'd honestly just want to do this for a living. I'd want this to be the only thing I did. If I could survive doing all the things I love at once, I would be fulfilled. This has proven to be the only thing I've been paid for that I felt like is what I'm supposed to be doing. It's isolated me from friends, it's killed relationships, because in reality, I'd love comfort, but I'd be fine with sustainability. That's a tough thing to get on board with, but like, fuck if it isn't the most exhilarating thing. I'd like to be better at it, more consistent, have something approximating a set, focus on more interstitial side story stuff that feeds my failed dreams of being a filmmaker. Because you see, that's also the other thing. I just want to do too many things. I'd want to make a movie too. I went to school for it, and you know what? I dropped right the fuck out of that school because film is a collaborative art, and I don't deal well. I don't deal well with that. Not only sharing an artistic vision, but people make me anxious already, and it's only worse when they have a say in things I'm making. I realize it's not cute, and it's not rare for a millennial to say something like that, but it's fucking real, and it's killed a lot of my filmmaking dreams. Deep down, I still want it though. I want to do all kinds of shit, and I guess I want to get somewhere where I can create what I want when I want, and I don't have the specter of a torturous day job looming over me, where every second I'm just thinking, fuck, I wish I was making something. I think I answered your question somewhere in there. Monty CRO asks, are you okay? I hope you're okay. I'm doing my best, Monty. I got a lot of funny business going up in the old loaf of bread, and it makes things much more difficult than they ought to be, but I've been having some really good days this past month. Despite being more or less homeless at the moment, positivity. I can feel it. It's very rare. I don't want to scare it away, but it's here for now. Thank you for checking in though, and I hope you're doing well. Astro Shepherd asks, what's one brand, genre, or series you love that no one would guess you're into based on how you present yourself online and through your work? And why do you love it? Besides Disney and Pokemon. Fuck, man. Those would have been two good ones, but maybe I've made it apparent enough that I like those. So I'm not too sure if you meant this as a gaming question or just a general fandom sort of question. I mean, I could say Harry Potter, but I think it's generally accepted as being for adults now. It has enchanted the hearts of goths, gamers, and normies alike. So I'll give you two answers. For gaming, I'd have to say, completely unironically, I have enjoyed Minecraft. It's relaxing, it's creative, it's fun to play with others. It deserves to be the cash cow that it is. It deserves to be on throw pillows and pop sockets alike. It deserves dumb spin-offs and a TV show and, whatever the fuck else it wants. Whatever medium it wants to leach out into. Sometimes, your boy just wants to build his dream castle. Alright? I'm sure I've alluded to this to some degree throughout my videos. And that's my appreciation for reality shows, especially ones in which shit is dug out of an attic or a garage and appraised and sold. If we're being honest, specifically the show American Pickers. If you don't know, it's a show on the History Channel where two guys drive around in a van trying to buy old shit from people in order to resell it at their shop. I don't know how to explain it. It does something for me. Its hosts are kind of charming. I like the history lessons. I like seeing old stuff and being told how much it costs. Like, I'll regularly just have this show on in the background. I made my video for Sanitarium at the height of a really rough depression, and I wanted to play that game as comfort. But it opens with a clip of me watching American Pickers and scribbling down Danielle's name on a paper, and she's like the liaison at the shop that tells the two hosts, where to go and shit. And in some later episodes, they send her out to buy stuff as well. But that show was just on. And became a part of the video because I just left it looping endlessly on Hulu. And I would come home to it alone in my apartment I was about to lose in a few weeks. All my stuff packed in boxes. And I'd just sit on my bed eating shitty food and watching that show. So, I don't know. Maybe it was a bonding experience of sorts. I mean, obviously, I'm open to that experience already. But that one specifically struck a chord with me, I guess. Hope that answered your question. Harley asks, Who is the best girl in Xenoblade Chronicles 2? And do you find it weird at all that you summon them from magic rocks and they obey you and call you master? Or do you consider that to be a tasteful adherence to the narrative conventions of anime as a whole? Well, firstly, probably Azami. Her design is gorgeous and just overall a really inventive character. I mean, they're all mostly really well designed, but that one in particular really grabs my attention. I don't think it's that strange. I realize I picked the one character that is literally a marionette and refers to you as master. I'm sure that says something about me, but you know, they're magic. It's all magic. This is a world someone dreamed up in their head, and the rules can be whatever they want. If you want to make a world where big-tittied girls appear from rocks and serve you, f***ing have at it. Obviously there's an audience for it, and nothing wrong about it. Nothing wrong with having a consensual relationship similar to this, you know, where one is dominant and makes the other attack people with swords. Sorry, I think there's a dog throwing up in the background. You alright? You good? You gonna shut up now? Love you. Tasteful? I don't know. That's up to you to decide. But in general, Japan seems much less afraid of big tits than other countries. I'm sorry to break it to you, world, but they exist. You know, I seen them, and guess what? Almost nothing set on fire. So, you know, I don't know what that says about your theories there, but I feel like I could title this video, you know, Goth Gamer destroys the anti-titty league. Very asks, have you thought of playing more games made by one person / have nobody talking about them? If so, I have a ton of recommendations and shit. Also, are there any games that you're looking forward to? I mean, I'm open to it. I appreciate very much... Where was I going with that sentence? I very much appreciate those experiences. Those visions saw through, you know, with one mind. I'm excited to play whatever Jonathan Boakes decides to put out next, whether it be a Lost Crown continuation or a Darkfall one, or whatever that beautiful British boy decides to do next. I'll be there. I'll be there to give him guff on some design choices, but ultimately I will respect his work and how much care and heart goes into it. If you've got suggestions, feel free to send them to me. And I feel like I answered the other part of that question up above. Raiden, it's Raiden, asks, Deus Ex is in your channel intro. Why don't you man up and review it? Huh? Oh, and one more thing. Will you ever review the Stalker games? They'd be perfect for your channel. Buddy, I'd review every game on the goddamn planet if I could. If I had the time, that shit would be in the can already. It would be uploading as we speak. But all I can do is promise I'll get around to it someday. I mean, lately I've been letting people vote on some choices for games to review, and I've been liking that. So maybe Deus Ex or Stalker will wind up in one of those, and you'll just have to stick around and make your voice heard. That's another new noise. I'd like that to stop. Robohemian asks, what do you think about esotericism and the occult? Any interest or legitimate belief? Spoken as a chaos magician. First of all, excellent title to give yourself. I'm interested on that alone. But interest, yes. I have a lot of interest in, shall we say, underdog faiths. I feel like that's a very nice way of saying cults, and I'm sorry about that. But the occult is particularly alluring to me, and there are large portions of it that make genuine sense to me as a generally positive and helpful way to go about your life. But try as I might, there just ain't a dang thing in this world that I can subscribe to or believe in. I would like to, but that part of my brain is just real closed off. I have a lot of respect for people that can let that kind of thinking into their head, because there is almost a strength to that, to like surrendering to something, and I don't know, I'm too stubborn for that. Luna Dankovsky asks, if you were guaranteed the correct answer to one question, what would you ask? Will I ever feel relief? Like, will there ever be a moment when I can just like breathe in complete like comfort and contentness that nothing horrific is gonna happen to me? I don't know. Thank you for your question. Raiden asks, penis length. Enough for most. Thank you for your question. Astro Shepherd asks, are you interested in the idea of collaborative work, a la Mandalore's cameo in Reykjavik's Metro review? And if so, who would you want to work with, if it could be anyone, and which fictional character inspires you the most and why? Non-fictional? Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how my brand of content would benefit others in any way. I'm open to it, but I don't see it happening anytime soon, at least. I've hired a couple people on Fiverr to read things for me, and that there was some exhilaration in that, but like, I don't know if that extends to working, you know, more intensely with someone else. I'm open to it though. If it could be anyone, you know, just someone with a similar interest in games, if the idea sounded good, and if they don't mind working with a neurotic mess of a person, you know, it's kind of a if they'll have me situation. Dream collaboration, as in never in a million years gonna happen. Probably Tecmone. I just want to help a sweet British man fix an old VCR or something. I just want to be in the presence of a beautiful soul. Even if it was just like me in the background cheering him on, like, you got it. You'll figure it out, buddy. Hey, do you want to be my dad? I can't think of a fictional or non-fictional person that, like a non-fictional character, that just sounds like a person. You know, no, I'll say some people can inspire me. I don't know if it's in line with your question, but the filmmaker Shane Carruth is an inspiration to me. He writes, directs, edits, scores, and stars in his own films, and both of them are beautiful and among my favorite films. Some game developers as well, like Agustin Cordes, I'm inspired by, you know, creators that accomplish a lot on their own, I guess, and are passionate about their craft. But yeah, I don't know about a fictional character. Hige from Wolf's Rain, I'm gonna go with that. It was literally the only thing that came to my mind. So, you know, maybe that resonates with someone, I don't know. Duck asks, why is death inevitable? You know, it's just the way of things, my friend. That is born will die. What has been gathered will be dispersed. What has been accumulated will be exhausted. What has been built up will collapse. And what has been high will be brought low. Thank you for your question. Very asks, if a turtle doesn't have a shell, is it naked or homeless? Are you trying to do like the replicant test on me? Do you make up these questions or do they write them down for you? Ikifu asks, what things about a game make you decide to review it and what stops you dead in your tracks? A lot of the time it's just been trial and error, but I think I'm like starting to hone in on some unspoken thing about games that I know will kind of create enough material. But it used to be that I'd play a whole game, write a script, start editing, and then realize that it isn't going to be any good. There's no way I can make it good. But thankfully that feeling crops up earlier now and I can see it coming a little better. But lately I've actually found a lot of motivation in just letting others decide. I'm really thankful to have that option, I guess. Because once people vote on them, then I'm committed. Like I can't back out of it, lest I look like an asshole. And that really spurs me on to get it done and to make it good. Before, like in a similar move, I would just post on Twitter, you know, X is the next game I'm reviewing, you know, just so I wouldn't change my mind or bitch out of it. But I'm attracted to creepier, narrative-driven, indie, experimental, offbeat kind of games that maybe are polarizing or divisive, and you know, that's an area I feel like I can write about and have like a varied, interesting response to. 'Cause I can't do like short-form games. I think one of my worst videos. What the fuck's happening to my brain? I'm melting. Like I think one of my worst videos is probably the video for Virginia. Ooh, my mind really wanted to say other words there. And it just made me realize there isn't much I can add to the discussion for those like shorter walking sim games. A lot of them are great, but they sort of speak for themselves in a lot of ways. And I've also canceled reviews. Canceled? I've abandoned them like pretty far into production. Because I knew my review would only be mean-spirited, that I would have absolutely nothing good to say about it. And like I didn't want to let that happen, especially after way long ago I reviewed a game called Corrosion, I believe it was called. And I was kind of really shitty to the game, like for the sake of humor. I feel like I didn't really think about much of what I was saying. Like there wasn't a whole lot of accuracy to it. It was just kind of for the sake of a goof or for the sake of making some kind of point. But then the developer actually commented on the video, and then like I felt bad because like, oh, he had to watch that about this little tiny fucking game that he made that he probably cared about. And I didn't want to be the guy that just did that for the goof, for the sake of a bit or something. So I didn't want to review games where it was just gonna be that. So if I feel like that's the case, I'll usually concede that it might not make the most interesting review. Yeah, like, I'm not a person who revels in, like, my anger or disappointment in games. I want to like games. I want to have feelings. I want to have thoughts about them. I think that was an answer. Thank you for your question. Robohemian asks, top 10 anime girls. This one is a joke. Well, fuck, dude, I was all jacked up to answer this one. Thanks anyway. Astro Shepherd asks, top 10 anime girls. Not a joke. Haha. But you know what? No, it's too late. You guys had your chance. Alright, fine. If I can think of 10, but like, I'm sure they're going to be way obvious ones, because it's not like I'm some weeb with like weird offbeat opinions on anime characters and like, gonna pick like a bunch of weird baloney. I will try to think of 10. So I'm probably gonna go with Lucy, Hawkeye, Sabrina, Armitage, Motoko, Sifa, Palm, Excel, Ray, and Rhaenyra. Fuck that. I'm like normal in a lot of other ways. Astro Shepherd also asks, what villain do you think is the most underrated / misunderstood, and why? Okay, look, I've been avoiding populating this with a lot of Lost references, but probably Ben from Lost. Not only is it an amazing performance by Michael Emerson, but the character is it's so easy to empathize with. Like, I have literally wept for him, and yet he is capable of doing some deeply horrific shit. What's this noise now? I'm just gonna wait this one out. Oh, fuck. See, new mic is amazing, but old pop screen, not so amazing. And yet he's capable of doing some deeply horrific shit throughout the course of the show. It's like I always understand why he's doing something, even if I don't agree with it. I get it. I feel like my brain's going to really dumb places with your question. I'm very sorry. But I really liked Meg from Supernatural. I immediately feel like these aren't the answers you were looking for. Unless you too specifically happen to be somebody who you didn't have cable when they were younger and had to watch everything the CW put out. I'm sorry, WB. I think it became CW like right as I was, realizing the internet existed. Anyway, I loved the trajectory of her character. From objectively pure evil to more of a chaotic neutral situation. I'm a fan of that arc where it's like they become gray. Like, I'm a fan of Emma Frost from the X-Men comics. I liked watching her transition into being less and less villainous until she's like mostly good but being manipulated into doing villainous things, and still has some tendencies, and she's always had some kind of intense guilt or emotional conflict to deal with, like in Astonishing X-Men, and I appreciate that. I hope that answers your question. Resurrection asks, is there any game that you sentimentally associate with a certain time in your life? If yes, please elaborate. Oh, tons. I look back on my time with vanilla World of Warcraft pretty fondly. That was a formative, interesting time in my life, as well as, like high school ending, trying to find a purpose. Though, when I think about it, a lot of the games that stick in my head as like being specific to a time in my life are more often than not games that comforted me after a breakup or something like that. And, I just feel like, oh, it was nice that I had that game there with me to help me out. Like Far Cry 3 and Mad Max and Destiny and Doom 2016. I feel like I developed a pattern of like, the day after I would just buy myself a game and like a shitload of Chinese food and, just bond, work through it. I guess you didn't say anything about good sentiment. Maybe a more positive one would be, I remember sitting on my father's lap playing Wolfenstein 3D, so that was nice. I got to be introduced to PC gaming. And I had a dad. That was awesome. Aya in Slavland asks, is there any books you recommend people to read? Also, what is your favorite JRPG and why isn't it Shin Megami Tensei 3? Any books I recommend you read? I guess Pen Pal by Dathan Arbok. It's like a creepy mystery of sorts that, when I initially read it, sort of chapter by chapter in Reddit posts, it was very effective. Like, it got under my skin. Then I read it as Pen Pal, and it shaped into a book, and it was still pretty good. It sort of lost something along the way, but it's always, a brisk, creepy read that I recommend. And I don't even own it anymore because I've lent out 2 copies that never made it home. Favorite JRPG, I'm going to disappoint a lot of you by saying Final Fantasy VIII, because it was my personal introduction to the genre. Probably the one I played the most, and I just kind of adored everything about it. there is a sentimental attachment to it. Funnily enough, it wasn't even on PlayStation 1. I originally played it on PC. It came in a weird fold-out pamphlet thing with like 4 discs that I got from Costco. It isn't Shin Megami Tensei 3 because I've never played that game, and I'm sorry. Thank you for your question, though. Dostia asks, how's the beard? Sufficiently grim? It could stand to be a little less grim, I'll be honest. I should take better care of it, but the same could be said for the rest of me. I Love OP asks, how and when did you embrace your inner edgelord? As a closet edgelord, I need advice on this. Honestly, I don't know if I've fully embraced it. I feel like there's more in there waiting in the wings, but I can't really think of a time when I wasn't, to some degree, an edgelord. I think lately just kind of talking about it openly, not trying to downplay it as a guilty thing, and just as a, hey, this is me, I like edgy shit kind of thing, might as well just own up to it. The honesty with myself, I guess, it gave me some kind of peace. It was a concern of mine early on in the beginning of my channel. I had a big identity crisis about it, but now I sort of think it's aesthetically the edgiest it's been, and I've been the most open and forthcoming as a person. So just be you, and don't feel guilty for being you, unless you're a murderer. Ferguson asks, what's your favorite anime intro tune? For some reason, there's a lot, and there's a lot of good ones. I'm probably a fan of all the classic ones that you're thinking about right now, but for some reason the first one that came to mind was from an anime that I don't know if people even care about, if it was like a hit or anything. I don't hear it brought up too often, but it was called Requiem from the Darkness, which was like a dream for me as a preteen. Or I don't know when that came out. I might have been like 16 or something. But I was enamored with the way it was drawn, and the name alone, that's probably the edgiest name I've ever heard. The opening is really like smooth and sensual, and is sort of uncharacteristic of a lot of J-rock openings. Also, I'm not gonna lie, I was affected by the intro track that Maximum the Hormone did for Death Note, and you know what? I don't care who knows it. It's fucking wacky. I really like it. It reminds me of like Naked City or something. Even though for parts of it, it does really sound like they're saying a very harmful slur. And I know it's not their fault. I know that's not the lyric. It's just like when it gets to that part, I'm like, all right, let's get past it. Let's get past it. Goblin asks, you ever read any books? What literature are you into? Will you marry me? I feel like I half answered this question, but I guess more generally, I love nonfiction, anything that's like dealing with abduction experiences or true crime stuff. I've consumed a great deal of that. As far as nonfiction, I like creepy psychological stuff like House of Leaves is one of my favorite. That's probably pretty indicative of what I'm into. I mostly read a lot of comics, but I doubt that's what anyone means when they say literature. You may not marry me, as I am saving myself, for someone who really genuinely cares about me, and thank you for your question. Luna Dankovsky asks, why are you so cute? Stop it. Oh my god. Two Lanes asks, did Griffith do anything wrong? Yeah. I think we both know that he did. I think there are some things that are unforgivable, no matter what context led to them. There's things you shouldn't do. He did those things. Thank you for your question. Na asks, will he ever come back to me, or do I have to just let go? I'm gonna say let go. Don't spend your life waiting around for someone else to give it meaning. Someone doesn't appreciate you enough to be with you? Fuck him. Find someone else. I say this knowing that I would never follow my own advice, but, seeing as though I'm impartial and without context, I'm gonna say what others have said to me and I've ignored. But I have the hindsight to say I shouldn't have ignored it, so maybe that adds an extra layer to it. Hope you're doing well. Swood Operator asks, happiest moment of your life thus far? Also, how do you feel about jazz? Nothing's coming to mind. It's not a thing I realize when it happens. I can't say there's ever been a moment in my life where I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm happy right now. And, even if it does happen, like a couple hours later, I'm gonna be like, oh, I can't believe I just fucking did that. Fucking idiot. I like jazz a lot. I listen to Spotify in my car, but it sort of automatically kicks the radio on first, and I have it set to the local jazz station, so whenever I'm just too lazy to play something, or I'm just feeling it, jazz is usually on. Fan of jazz. Fan of some jazz. Pixelfish asks, fuck, marry, kill. Summonable entities. Is this another Xenoblade Chronicles 2 question? If there was a specific context you meant this in, I I'm missing it, but it would be really easy if this was a Xenoblade Chronicles 2 question. So I'm sorry if it's not, but that's how I'm going to approach it. Because I'm going to Vale, because she seems like a mistake I'd make. You know, someone more goth than I that I can't keep up with and has far more emotional baggage than I'm capable of dealing with. Marry Dahlia, because I like how forward she is, you know, with her intentions. I mean, we just met and she already thinks we'd be great together. She wants to make my life enchanting. I want to be enchanted. Kill Florin, because I don't trust her for a goddamn second. Like, that's your first impression? You know she ain't gonna be loyal. You know it. You know it. You know. Comrade Llama asks, what are your favorite horror experiences regardless of medium? I feel like most of my memorable experiences with horror have been written. You know, like some of the books I've mentioned here already, but mainly books about paranormal experiences written by people who believe them. That's probably a big reason why I like Lovecraft so much, because it's often just like a recounting of somebody in character, like their experiences of something they saw. There's something inherently Lovecraftian about these real, in quotes, experiences that people have had. And you know, something like Communion or any of the other books by Whitley Strieber that kinda decrease in credibility as they go on, but they're still interesting. You know, he was a horror writer to begin with, and then he experiences these deeply horrifying events and then writes them as a horror writer would. It was very effective. The problem with these, though, is that I feed off that belief so much that anything that seems questionable to me, it could kill the fear it gives me. Like, I remember a while back there was a really interesting abduction experience book called Messages by Stan Romanek, and there was something extra endearing about it, I think because he's kind of a dumb dude. In the opening, there's like this prologue that's like, look guys, I'm a dummy, I needed help on this book, so like all this is kind of dumb, but I'm gonna do my best. And you know, it made his harrowing and mysterious experiences kind of credible in like a cute way. Yeah, but like years later, a crew tried to make a documentary about him, and it came out that he was a pedophile, and needless to say, that put a damper on his credibility. And you know, I'm not a big fan of that book anymore. I guess that would apply to any genre, to any writer, but you know, apparently except Lewis Carroll though. Everybody gets one. The Hunter of Ash and Cinder asks, what is your worst fear? You know, I have one that's pretty specific. And I don't know if anybody's going to relate to this, because it's like it's a thing you already have to be experiencing. But sometimes my own detachment from reality is frightening. Like when I've sort of become lost in a derealization spell and become aware of it, I have this intense fear that I'll sort of become lost in it forever. And it's even more terrifying when it happens while I'm driving. I haven't worked out a great way of bringing myself back from it, but I just kind of repeat like a mantra to assure myself that I'm here, I'm awake, I need to focus, I'm operating a vehicle, everything is real. If anyone can relate to that, it's that. Also like insects being on my person or having my bits cut off. Two Lanes asks, what is the thing that scares you the least? Outlast 2. Lori asks, what is the thing that scares you medium? And would you ever consider playing video with me? Outlast 1, and maybe. 666KMP asks, what's it like to hold the hand of someone you love? I don't remember. Astro Shepherd asks, what is your favorite cuisine dish, and what cuisine dish would you like to try the most? I like Thai food a lot, maybe like a pad see ew with chicken at like a mid to lower spice level. I've always wanted to explore more Filipino food, because what I've had has been delicious, but like, I don't know enough about it, I don't have like the hookup, so yeah. Rupee Nini asks, where do you find inspiration for your videos? I don't know if I have like a reference point for what inspires them, because they were very reactionary to other content creators, or rather a lack of seeing myself in others, and this endless desire I retained to have conversations about things I cared about. Before my channel, I would frequently just pace back and forth having a one-sided conversation with myself, as if there was someone there. And it was very compulsive in nature, because if I couldn't finish it, it would be very unsatisfying. Like, I feel like I had a lot of compulsive behavior that got reined in when I started writing my thoughts down and making videos. It's because of this that one of the initial ideas I had for a channel, which I might have some written record of, was going to be me on camera at a table and then mirrored on the other side of the table, and I would write and meter out a conversation about a game as though I was literally talking to myself. The main failing of that was that it required me to be on camera. and I don't think I would handle well with that. I should use right now to clarify, I've never been on camera in any of my videos. A lot of people think this clip I used in my pathologic video of a mass murderer was me, and that is not me. I'd like to take credit for it because he was better looking than I, but spree murderer, not me. Boss Sauce asks, gear setup for music production. Not much. I have like an older Audio-Technica mic that I bought for $60 at a family-run computer store that I used to live next to called Best Deal Computer. And I use FL Studio with Massive, which is a VST plugin that's why it sounds that bad. Merc asks, are you going to make a review for I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream? Yep. FBS asks, favorite author and book, or generally, what kind of books and comics do you read? I don't know if I have a favorite author. Since it kind of transcends both, I'm going to say Neil Gaiman. But I'll try to focus on comics, I guess, because I haven't talked about that much. I'm a big fan of Alan Moore, even though predictably there's always at least one moment where he includes something and I just kind of have to roll my eyes and say, oh, Alan. Again with this Alan. Definitely Neil Gaiman, though. He is amazing. I'll read anything he puts out. Sandman was my introduction to comics in general, and I'll always have a fondness for that. Gorgeous book. I don't know if I have a type of comic I read. I kind of just go for like whatever looks good. Right now I can tell you I'm currently reading Nailbiter, Gideon Falls, and it's like a romantic mystery adventure with anthropomorphic animals, but it's really good. Okay. It's called Unnatural. It's kind of like Zootopia with weird Kafka-esque influences and lots of like pig girls. But like it's good. I've been enjoying it a lot. It's really cute. So that's out there. Art is beautiful. Lori asks, have you seen Evangelion? Yes, it's great. Haven't caught up with the movies though. Those look very neat, but haven't committed to them quite yet. Octo asks, what does Grimbeard Gamer bathwater taste like? If I had to guess, like 7-Eleven coffee. And I don't mean like it vaguely tastes like that. I think I think it might just be that. There might be some residual saltiness from Cheers or something, but other than that, it's just like straight up coffee. What's the best, most rewarding part of publishing shit you create on YouTube? What's the worst? The best part, I'd say, is seeing any kind of reaction to something I made. Like after weeks of slaving over something, I hit publish and back away from the computer, like probably to go to sleep. I like doing it right before I sleep. And then coming back to anything. You know, I said some things, people heard it and reacted to it. It's a simple thing, but also surreal in a way, at least for me. It's the satisfying of things I want out of having a channel in the first place. I guess being heard, having that conversation and having somebody respond. The worst part is just time. I don't feel like I have enough time to do everything I want or to perfect things the way I want. So when a video has a mistake or an error or omission, even if only I know about it, like that video is dead to me. It's buried. It's in the dirt. Is there any video or song you're particularly proud of? Which one and why? I like my video for American McGee's Alice. I think I covered a lot of not only bits of the game, but of my personal experiences with the game and my relationship with it, so to speak. And it's one of those videos that I didn't really struggle with. If anything, there was an overabundance of ideas. I guess as far as songs I'm most proud of would be Sailor Mercury, because I pushed myself to have my voice be more focal, and it has the least processing involved. I mean, it's almost none. It's my voice layered at 2 different pitches, but I never thought I'd do that, let alone have it also be essentially a diss track. 2 things I never thought I'd dabble in. But I have another track called... I don't remember my own songs now. I've Always Been Weak. Which it's like horribly produced. I don't think it's very good, but like I feel like when I was doing it, when I was performing it, I felt like I was nailing it. Like I feel like I did okay in bringing out the voice I wanted to bring out, which wavers so much because I don't know, like I'm not trained in any sense. So like I don't know what my normal is as far as like achieving that sound. It's like I have to tap into it by just making weird guttural noises like a test meter until I find it. Like I'm just listening to the loop of the song and being like until like I get it, and then like, okay, I got it, and then like jump into it. So, did I answer the question? V Guess Who asks, where do you see yourself in 5 years? This is assuming my brain works in long term. Right now, my circumstances are kind of one step at a time here. I want to find my own place to live again. I want to grow my channel to the point where I don't have to go to a job during the day that sucks my life force away and makes me into even more of a misanthropic recluse. I want to increase production value. I want to probably not live in such an expensive city. That would help. I want to find or be closer to comfort, to happiness. You know, I don't know if I see myself there, but I'm gonna fucking try. And thanks to all of you for all 10k of you, or realistically, there may be 2k of you that will watch this particular video. Thank you for getting me one step closer to maybe, hopefully, probably not, but fingers crossed, getting there.